across the country was unconstitutional. No longer, according to this Supreme Court decision, could you segregate coloreds from whites in public schools. So all students, black or white, whatever, could be and should be schooled together, not separate due to race. Now, I'll tell you what, this decision was a shock to most American citizens, and especially those who weren't willing to give blacks their rights. And where did those people live? Deep South. So that's going to be an issue. So I would tell you this, that when that Supreme Court decision came out, most states in this union made concerted efforts to abide by the new law. Those states in the Deep South continued to resist that throughout the 50s and the 60s, just so you know. And we'll talk about a lot about that when we get into the decade of the 60s. Okay? All right. Let me ask you a question. When the Supreme Court decision, Navy, came down, Brown versus the Board of Education, did Negroes begin to become less aggressive or more aggressive in their viewpoints? Much more, because they had seen support. So Negroes are going to become much more boisterous. And probably the greatest example of that is Rosa Parks. Okay? So as a result of the Supreme Court decision, Brown versus the Board of Education, Negroes began to become more aggressive in their viewpoints. And on December 1st of 1955, Rosa Parks comes into the scene as civil rights. On December 1st of 1955, Rosa Parks enters American history. Now you probably know the story, so you write down what you want. She was a 42-year-old black seamstress. She got on a city bus in Montgomery, Alabama. When she was asked to give up her seat by a white person, she said no, refused. Okay? So on December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks, a 42-year-old black seamstress, refuses to give up her bus seat to a white man on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. What happens to her because of that, Emily? They arrest her. They charge her, find her guilty, and they fine her $14. Okay? Which a lot of people thought was kind of unfair. Mostly black people. Well, it's kind of interesting because was that legal to do that? Did Brown versus the Board of Education say we needed to desegregate buses? No, just schools, right? So it's legal. Well, this is great because what happens is a fairly, pretty average pastor at a church in Montgomery decides that he doesn't think that's right and he's going to plan a protest. And his name is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So as a result of Rosa Parks' actions, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was serving as a local pastor in Montgomery, Alabama, decides that he's going to lead a protest because he does not approve the way Rosa Parks was treated. How does he protest? Anybody know? What's that? Peacefully, but what does he do exactly? He boycotts what? The city bus company. And who rides the city bus? Think about it. Blacks and low-income whites, right? Seriously, that's the people that are a majority of riders because they don't have transportation. So he picks out this demographic and he gets to them and says, hey, they're not treating us right. Let's boycott the bus. Let's not ride the bus. And if we don't ride the bus, we don't pay to get on. Okay? We don't pay to get on. And this boycott lasts 13 months. And pretty soon, who's getting hit financially? Bus companies. They are in a world of hurt. And this decision on December 13th, 1956, ironically solves the problem for both the bus companies and Negroes. What decision happens on December 13th, 1956? The Supreme Court rules that all of Alabama's segregation laws are unconstitutional. Wow. Now they can't discriminate anywhere in Alabama. Bus terminals, buses, restaurants, hotels, nothing. So on December 13th, 1956, the United States Supreme Court rules that Alabama's state and local policies on segregation are unconstitutional. What does Martin Luther King do 7 days later? He gets on a city bus and he sits in the front seat, which is reserved for whites only, and takes himself a bus ride. And from that point on, Martin Luther King Jr. will be the face of the civil rights movement in the United States from this point on until his assassination in April of 1968. What? Yep. Now, what we're going to talk about tomorrow is school segregation at Little Rock, Arkansas, which is an example where a governor of Arkansas challenges that Supreme Court decision of desegregating schools, and we'll see what happens. And then we'll talk about a presidential election of 1956, and then we'll move into the race for space. Yeah, all right. Got an opportunity for some of you if you're interested.